Empire defiantly stands against Halima and Harry's predictions by offering to prove himself by walking the spiral. Salvor and the Anacreons find the ghost ship the Invictus, but can they take control of the ship before it jumps again? Welcome to Road Goes Ever On and On. Today, Sterling and I are talking about the 7th hit episode of the Apple TV show Foundation. So spoilers ahead. And if you don't want us jumping from your feed, just hit that like and subscribe button and turn on that bell for notifications. And with that, Sterling, what did you think?
Really digging some of these kind of themes that we've been talking about that I feel are being fleshed out even more. We kind of talked about what it is to be human, and I think we saw a really interesting dichotomy in this one. In particular between Empire and Demerzel. Because you have Demerzel, who is a robot, but is doing everything she can to look like a human, probably because of the robot wars, and so she doesn't want to be discovered. But also she is trying to find a real purpose in life, which, like, she has code that tells her what she should do, but she's looking for a purpose outside of that, which is extremely human. And then you have Empire, who's actually a human, and he, because they have backups of each of them that they can switch in if one of them dies, or switch in if it's not a perfect copy.
Right.
These people that are actually humans are almost like acting like programs, where it's like they don't want to go outside of their code and do something they shouldn't do because they'll be replaced. They'll be deleted to a certain extent, you know?
Right.
So,
and Don, you can see why he's afraid. Like, at first you think, oh, it's just a bit of a mutation. He should be fine. But there's all these, like, little idiosyncrasies that he misses. And, I think with the reveal of that they can be replaced so easily, like they're literally learning everything going on in this moment, I think that lends credence to why he's so scared. Like, he's so scared of
right.
Dusk finding out, and I think Dusk has a little bit of an inkling of this is what's happening.
Right. But, like, the crazy thing is that means that even though they are living, breathing people that should be able to try and find their own destiny, they feel like they have to focus on, like, just being a Cleon and doing what a Cleon would do. And so, to a certain extent, they are more machines, or soulless at least, than I would say Demerzel is. Or at least they're acting soulless. Like, we definitely see that Dawn does have wants. He does have desires. He's just scared to show them. But it's just wild that it makes him act like he's following his programming, doing
Yeah.
what he's expected to do.
I wonder if Dawn proves Halima's prophecy wrong. So, like, if these conscious souls that are being reincarnated, or it's the same soul, or whatever it is, that they believe, there's no variations, and that's why she wants to end the genetic dynasty. But now we can see that somehow in the cloning process, they can essentially have different mutations. Like, would that appease Luminism?
Right. And I kind of think that Day is also headed in that path. Like, it does look like we're having a break from the lineage, because Day isn't supposed to leave the Empire, because, or what is it? Terminus? Trantor, thank you. Day's not supposed to leave Trantor, and now he's doubling down on a dangerous move, in that not only has he left Trantor, but he's about to do the spiral, which is extremely dangerous. And that's the kind of thing that I don't think your shield would protect you from. Like dehydration, heat stroke, the things along these lines. It's something that deals with, like, high-speed attacks,
Yeah.
not any of these other things. So
It
he's
might have
going.
UV protection. It might have sunscreen on it.
It could. It might
And
have
I think
sunscreen
that
on
would
it.
be the best one
I,
to go in with. At least a little bit of protection.
yes, but I also think that the journey has the opportunity to be transformative to him, and possibly make him realize something bigger than himself, or an epiphany, something that changes you. Like, I think that amount of time by yourself, it's hard not to be, and especially in that tough of a scenario, you learn what your breaking points are. You think that you can do anything, and maybe there are moments when you like fall to your knees and cry with nobody to see because it's so difficult. So I think this could be transformative, and I think it's kind of interesting.
Do you think, because Demerzel has walked the spiral, and so I'm curious if, like, was it hard for her, as a robot? Like, she's maybe not affected by sun, dehydration, like, she does need things to get ready, like, she has certain things, like, maybe she needs to oil, so, like, it could be
Yeah.
difficult for her. But I was curious,
Right.
along the lines with, like, Cleon going through it with his shield, if he goes with his shield, if he takes his shield off, or however that works, and how it felt for her. And then I don't know if there's, like, a registry of the people that go down the spiral. Like, do they know Demerzel went down the spiral? And, like, do they know that she's AI? These are all I kind of went down these rabbit holes with this whole spiral thing. I'm excited to see him go down the spiral.
I am too. And it's cool because the spiral and Invictus both point towards, like, our world is starting to branch outside of the Cleon dynasty.
Yes.
Luminism has been around since long before. These ideas that are considered heretical were around before the Cleons, and they're only heretical because of how they look towards the ruling emperor. Invictus was a warship that was around from, like, the best warship from before the Cleons, and so it's amazing that we've got this scope that before, I think, like, the size of the scope had to do with, like, the size of the galaxy that they were in, and that was wild enough as it was. But now we're starting to get to these things that are from long before, more than 400 years ago,
Which
and it's
is
cool to see
great.
that.
When Salvor gets to that barrier and she's like, I'm the only one that knows how to deal with these barriers. Like, you wouldn't get through these. Imagine something that was like a tech that was 500 years older than you. Like, from where we are, like, imagine going back to, the 1500s and getting, like, like not the printing press, but, like, having to go back and even operate a printing press without knowing how to do
Right.
it. Like, and that's, like, a couple hundred years from here. So, like, the fact that she was able to work on technology that was so long from when she was born, it's crazy that technology passes down that far.
Right. And I that might also kind of point towards the fact that she, I think, is somebody who's been out in the field actually dealing with, problems with the shields and the fences, rather than all the people inside that were, talking about, like, should we keep this or should we keep this for the Foundation? Okay, well, what about this or this? And it also, I think, kind of points towards, maybe the fact that she's got intuition or feel the future, because that was it's interesting. Was that supposed to be a revelation that Gail can feel the future? Because you and Dawn picked up on some of those clues. Literally, episode 1 picked up on her reacting before the sky bridge fell. I didn't quite notice that part.
I thought it was
And
common knowledge.
Yeah, so I mean, as soon as you two pointed that out, then it was kind of like, it was easy to connect all the dots at that point.
And then the second episode, it showed her predict that Raish was in trouble.
Right.
So, like, I think it's not supposed to be a huge reveal. I think the bigger reveal is going to be that Salvar's her daughter.
Okay. So, or that, like, this was the reveal to her when she finally put it together herself. But so something that was kind of surprising to me in this episode is the scar and how people look at the scar. So when I think of the scar, the first thing that kind of jumps to my mind is, you know, a scar in our society also from, you know, a terrorist attack. So like the, you know, 9/11, like the Twin Towers. And while I think that we have, you know, we built a new building there, and it is, you know, a show of our strength, you know, that we can rebuild. Like, you didn't bring us down to our knees. And so it is like this, you know, this thing of hope and this thing of strength and resilience. But what I thought was interesting about the scar is that it is, it almost seems like joyous, because they were staring at a screen, a simulation of what the outside world is. And even though this attack was devastating, I think the attack was against Empire, not the people. Yes, obviously it affected the people, but it's opened the people up to realize maybe Empire's wrong. Maybe we should start a rebellion. Maybe it's nice to actually see the sky.
And I feel that's why the Sinkers are having their rebellion down in the lower parts of Trantor, because I think people are starting to not enjoy what the Cleon Empire version.
Right. And I just, that was kind of cool to me, because it's not at all what I would have thought. But as soon as I kind of saw that interpretation, I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it does seem that the galaxy is having a, you know, like Halima says, that Luminism has a huge following, and everything that she's saying is making sense. And what she's feeling, like, it's not numbers, it's not what's happening necessarily, but it's like that deep down feeling that, like, it's wrong. Like, everything the Empire is doing is wrong. And, you know, I think if Halima's feeling this, there's tons of other people, like whoever did the attack on the Sky Bridge, they probably just feel, you know, this is the best way.
Right. I know I said it before in, like, episode 1, but it kind of reminds me of the Roman Empire, you know, where it's like they expanded and they would bring the people that they conquered, rather than just like murdering them all, they would bring them into the Roman Empire, and they were working towards peace, you know. So like once you were in the Empire, it did come with a lot of great things, because while the Romans weren't necessarily crazy about the sciences, they were big engineers. So it's like they build roads, they build like the aqueducts, you know, there's a lot of good things that came with it. But then at some point, I think you get this period of glut, which I think we're kind of seeing right now, where it's, you know, is the Empire actually doing anything beneficial for the people that they've conquered at this point? Or is it just focusing on, you know, making Trantor this like great place for them to live out their life, and they're taking their taxes, and they could install things to deal with like the saline water, you know, to like desalinate it,
right?
But they don't.
I do think Dusk said it exactly right. You know, he told Dawn, who's like, oh, I'm just learning about Trantor, and he's like, don't worry about Trantor, worry about the Empire. Like, we are what's inside this wall, like, this is what matters. Like, and
yeah,
I think that shows, just like, if all these Cleons have that mindset of they're only worried about got mine, you know, don't care about what you have, at least I got mine. And I think that shows why people don't want the Empire anymore. He's selfish. He cares about his safety, his comfort, and he doesn't care about bringing the people on the Maiden up. He does, like, they even say when they find the Invictus that jump technology is sacred to the Empire. Like, those are like Empire secrets. Like, not a single person outside the Empire can have jump technology. And they would destroy the whole Outer Rim to make sure that nobody had that ability.
Right.
So it's like they have this power. Like, if they gave jump drives to everybody, could they have multiple galaxies that, could they find a better jump drive? Like, could there be further progress that is being halted because Empire's a selfish prick?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's kind of cool things like that. I think another one of the ones that I really liked is kind of seeing the unpredictability of humanity. It's interesting how the show is built around the premise of somebody coming up with a model that can predict everything that's going on, and then putting all the pieces into place to come up with the best outcome. And yet, at every turn, I feel like there are things that really show how unpredictable humanity is, and how it's always going to be looking for a way. So it's like, even down to Harry himself. We found out in this episode that the plan was never for him to go there, but he actually probably would have gone there. It's only because he had a disease that he's like, okay, well, it makes sense for me to die, but like, he wasn't supposed to go there, and he knows more than anybody else. So it was interesting kind of seeing him being like having that drive to kind of like do the human thing.
Yes.
We clearly saw that with like Raish, who wasn't going to follow the plan until he was forced to follow the plan, because as a murderer he wasn't going to be able to stay on the ship, although that kind of went astray. We're seeing it with like Day with the spiral. Like, that seems like a non-Empire thing to do. We're seeing it with like Dawn and like the journey that he's making, that they like, people are doing things that are very human. They're not necessarily like according to the plan.
Yes, I do agree with that, and I think Harry was correct in making that assessment that he needed to die, because if he, that disease got to the Foundation, which he does say the first Foundation. So are there multiple foundations that are going to be set up throughout, however long the series goes on? Like, is it going to have multiple foundations? I wonder.
And or is it, I kind of think it's like the first calamity that they face might bring an end to the current Foundation, and a second Foundation has to be established, or something along those lines,
But then here's the interesting part, where, so Harry, had these calculations and the predictions to get Gaal to Terminus to be that person that is helping them through their first crisis, because she can see the future, she can feel the future. But then Salvor, who pretty sure is Gale's daughter, I mean, that's, yeah. I feel pretty confident in that, she can predict the future. So even though Harry's calculations were off a bit about getting somebody that can feel the future there, he still ended up with that prediction. She's just a little bit greener, I guess, like greener in the, existence of the universe. But I mean, she would be, well, I guess Gaal would be closer to her 50s or 60s at this point.
Right.
And
I think she's kind of a more interesting character in this role, because
Salvor or Gaal?
Salvor, yeah, Salvor, because she is the leader that they need, not the leader that they want. She's a bit of an outlier, and because of that, like, I think people are kind of uncomfortable with her being around. She doesn't want to be the leader. I think most of them don't want her to be the leader, but she's the
not
only
the leader
one
they
making...
deserve.
Exactly. But like, she's the only one making the right decisions,
right.
So it's like, it's hard not to follow her, because I mean, you've got Lewis is almost laughably useless.
Yes. Everything he does. Why is he here? Get rid of him. He's in charge? Wait, that's the guy in charge? No. We need a better guy. Put the last guy, Salvor's dad, put that guy in charge. He seemed like he had better sense than Lewis.
Pretty much anybody, like, Lewis is just, let me go to the books, or, in this episode, when she needs somebody to step up and literally fight, possibly lay down their life, but this is for the good of, the galaxy and the Foundation. And I don't remember the guy's name, but, one of the engineers that was taken, he steps up, and he ends up giving up his life and helping out. And Lewis just stood there like he always does.
He had to be told by the other girl. She was like, Lewis, like, let's go. And he's like, and he instantly, bam, fist to the face, cornered, like, instantly. Right. He's so useless. And
when he does make a decision, it is the wrongest decision, So, like, when he decided to take Farah, over to wherever it was where she, like, took out her eye in the previous episodes.
Yep.
And, like, explode, like, when he does make a decision, it's just bad. And I think that's why, for me, like, Salvor's character is kind of interesting, because it's cool seeing her take this mantle just because she is making the right decisions, not because she wants it or anybody else does.
Mm-hmm.
I think, like, her dad was actually her dad and Hugo are probably, like, the two that believe in her and are like, you're a leader, you're making the right decisions, and we'll follow you.
Speaking of Hugo, he's not dead.
Oh yeah,
he's not dead.
I've got that in my notes here. Hugo isn't dead.
I saw that. I was like, as soon as I saw that happen, I was like, yeah. Oh, my thrusters aren't working. Oh, see you later. Right. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me, Salvor. Continue on.
Right.
Just,
but I'm glad that they didn't try and, like, play up that moment. I mean, we did see Salvor grapple with it, and then far as, like, get it together, we need to move on. And so we did see her grapple with it, which is important because she thinks that he's dead.
Correct.
But I don't think the show tried to make it this huge mystery where they, like, pull the rug out from under us and is like, he's alive the whole time. Because they didn't do this, like, super sad thing.
Exactly.
That, like, tugs at our heartstrings.
And they didn't, like, the leading up to it, they had a couple cute moments, but it was never like, oh, what would I do without you? Or it was very much like, right. They're like, we're going to get through this. Like, I love you. We're going to get through this. And then they go, nothing was spent on it. We don't see him having troubles or anything. It was just like, goodbye. So right. I feel like that's pretty guaranteed he's coming back. And I still think he's going to be the mule.
I still think that's a very real possibility. I would be curious to see if we've already met Hober Mallow, if that's the case.
I don't know who that would be.
Is that somebody, like, the mule definitely sounds like it is, a title that somebody's given, not like a name that they were, given at birth. Hober Mallow sounds like it could be a name that somebody's given, which means that I don't think we've met somebody with that name. But I don't know. Maybe it's a title. I don't know.
Harbor, maybe because, like, a safe harbor, maybe? I don't know. Marshmallow?
Yeah, who knows?
You know, maybe
And
they
we
made it.
don't have a lot of episodes left to. Maybe we don't see the person until season 2. Maybe it's something that's just set up, or
Which,
maybe it's like a big reveal towards the end of the season. Is what I'm gonna guess.
but what's so crazy that I feel like that was just a voiceover in like one of the early episodes. We've never talked about them since, but
Right.
the line was these were going to be the people that were key in the fate of humanity, moving forward. And I do think that Hugo does make sense as the mule because he's Thespin. He has a lot to do with this kerfuffle that
Yeah.
like Salvor doesn't, even though he's not part of like the Foundation gang. Like he has a lot riding on kind of like this Thespin Anacrean, attack on the Empire. Like he is kind of crucial in this aspect.
It'd be interesting, So they did in that line say like the people. I don't remember what the exact line was, but it basically sounded like it was like the heroes and bad guys fighting for the salvation. I don't remember exactly what the wording is, but it kind of makes me wonder. It would be interesting if of those three personas, you have the one person who clearly is working towards what we think is good. The bad guy who is working very clearly against that, and then somebody who isn't necessarily tied to either side and is making the best choices for themselves, that sometimes is one way, sometimes is another way. It'd be interesting if that was the case. That's just like based off of my own personal wants, not based off of like anything that this show has given us. But I do feel like, going back to what you said about like that was just like a line of voiceover. That voiceover happens over top of other visuals, and it gives you information long before you know all the dots that like connect with it, so you don't know what to do with it yet. Like
Yeah.
like the martyr thing, like a mathematician, a martyr, a murderer. Hearing that, I didn't originally think that was Hari. So I do think that this show is able to kind of like give out some of this information out of context through some of these voiceovers, and you have to take a moment to think about it. Otherwise, it's easy to just kind of move on.
Yeah, and another thing with like that, with the whole like voiceover thing, they also have a lot of like those themes that we had talked about before that are like those recurring things, like the ghost, or like
Yeah.
one thing I really like is that something will happen to like one group of characters that directly reflects what's going on with like the other group of characters. So like in this episode, Gail's talking to Hari, and saying like, "Are you a god?" Or like, "You're not a god." And he's like, "No, no, no. Like, gods are impervious to knives. If you want gods to not exist anymore, you have to stop believing in them." And I feel like that was a direct parallel to Empire being a god, and Halima's exact same thought of what Hari has been saying is, you just gotta stop believing in him. Stop believing in Cleon. And that's how you kill a god. And I thought that like that one little line was just so good. Ugh.
That's good. And that it's true about like with his shield, he is impervious to knives, and that is, I didn't think about that. Like the biggest thing that you can do is
Stop believing in him.
not. Yeah.
And because you can't take down the Empire with brute force. But if you stop believing in the Empire, could you bring it down?
I think you can bring it down with brute force, but I think that not enough people would want to, because they would believe that like you can't do it.
Right.
Versus now that he seems, instead of being infallible, like he's fallible, people are starting to think this.
Yes.
That he's not everything that he's made up to be, and
We
so
saw-
people are willing to take chances.
We saw an attack on on Trantor at the Sky Bridge. You know, this Sky Bridge
Right.
that was him. That's like an attack on him. So, like, in a way, you could see that, like, okay, there's cracks in the armor now.
Oh yeah. Surprised with a lot of things in the show, like, and I know I've said this in kind of like previous episodes where it's like I feel like pretty much every character you feel empathy for, and that's awesome. And every character's on this spectrum of, maybe not necessarily all of them, but like a lot of them are on a spectrum of like a gray spectrum versus like black and white, you know?
Yeah.
The Cleons looked very much like the bad guys, but man, have they actually had episodes where I've had my heartstrings tugged regarding them, or I'm seeing the difficulties that they're dealing with, which is wild that they can make me empathize with them. And the same kind of thing with like the Anacreons, where, and these people are cold-blooded.
Very cold-blooded.
But I get them.
Yeah.
I'm not going to side with them, but I get it.
I see why they're doing what they're doing. Like, and I feel like Salvor, when she looks at Rowan and she's like, we got to get off this place. Like, we're going to die.
Right.
And like, Rowan is to the point. The Anacreons, they're like, I'm on the ship. Either we use this ship to destroy Empire, or
yeah,
I'm dying on this
well,
ship.
I mean, he already made the comment about, you know, like, that's great. Like, we're a ghost army.
Yeah.
Or you know, the one guy said, like, you know, you're already dead, you don't know it, and it's like, we're something about like being a ghost army. Like, he knows that's what they've committed themselves to, you know. So their lives don't matter other than exacting retribution on Empire. They're not trying to.
It's an all or nothing game for them right now.
Yeah,
and
they're not trying to like make families.
No,
and that's so. So to me, that's well written. That you do kind of empathize with every character. The last thing, and this isn't something that the show necessarily touched upon, but it's something that I'm dying for it to get into, for me at least, is I love Demerzel, and like the more hints that we're seeing about her past. Like, I want to get into this robot war.
Yes.
I want to get into who she is and like why she did the spiral. I mean, to a certain extent, I don't want them to like open every mystery with her, because then I think, you know, I think some things will be less exciting when we know everything about it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is a storyline that like really intrigues me, that I hope we get some interesting information. So I'm keeping my eyes out for anything related to it.
I'm really excited to see her character journey throughout the show, because, you know, right in that first interaction that her and Empire had, where he feels betrayed and he's like, you basically betrayed me in front of everybody. You made me look like a fool. And she's like, I literally can't do that. Like, it is not in my programming to betray you. So clearly what I did was not a betrayal to the Empire. And I'm very curious to see like where they go with that. Like, will she be conflicted, and can she go against that programming? Like, could she stand up to the Empire if she sees him doing something truly wrong and evil? It's interesting.
I think that'd be an interesting scene where she like tries to do something, can't, and then we see her pushing to try to accomplish it.
Yeah, like breaking, and like almost breaks that programming. That would be cool.
Right. Which I almost believe that she could, because she seems so human to me.
Gosh, she's one of my favorite characters in this show. She's so cool. She's a very cool one. But with that, I believe our journey has come to an end. Thank you guys so much for joining with us. Next week, we will be doing Foundation Episode 8, so we'll see you back next week. Have a good night.
Thanks.